Dennis James, the man known across the globe as the Menace, is not just a name in bodybuilding but a symbol of resilience, transformation, and iron-willed determination. A man who carved his legacy not only on stage under the brightest lights but also behind the scenes where he molded, motivated, and mentored the future of bodybuilding. And when we talk about his journey, we aren't just talking about another professional competitor who stepped onto the Olympia stage. We are talking about a story of struggle, sacrifice, redemption, and passion that burned so deep within him that it continues to inspire fans and athletes around the world. Because Dennis James was never the so-called genetic freak who won shows effortlessly. He was a warrior who fought for every ounce of muscle, every detail of conditioning, every ounce of respect in a sport dominated by giants. And when you trace his early years growing up in Germany as the son of a Thai mother and American father, you begin to understand the cultural diversity and unique upbringing that shaped his perspective, giving him not only strength but also the hunger to prove himself in a sport where very few Europeans, let alone biracial athletes from his background, had truly made their mark. And his introduction to weight training wasn't glamorous. It wasn't filled with sponsorships or promises of glory. It was raw, real, and born out of sheer willpower, the desire to sculpt himself into something greater than what he was. So when he began lifting weights in the early 1980s, he had no idea that this passion would eventually take him across continents, thrust him onto the stage with legends, and ultimately brand him forever as a bodybuilding icon. And the beauty of his story lies not only in the victories but in the countless failures and obstacles that tested him along the way. Because Dennis James competed at a time when the competition was fierce, when names like Ronnie Coleman, Jay Cutler, and Dexter Jackson dominated the stage, men who were titans of the sport, and yet Dennis dared to step beside them. Not intimidated but motivated, pushing his body into realms of conditioning that earned him a reputation as one of the hardest working and most dangerous competitors in the lineup. A man who never showed up out of shape, always dialed in, always ready, always bringing that freaky density and fullness that made him stand out even in the toughest fields. And while he never won the Mr. Olympia, his presence at that contest from the late 1990s into the early 2000s made him a fan favorite, a respected warrior, someone the audience knew would come in peeled, vascular, and battle-ready. But what truly separates Dennis James from many others is not just his competitive career, but the way he transitioned post-retirement. Because while some bodybuilders fade into obscurity after their last show, Dennis found a second calling as a mentor, coach, commentator, and voice of the sport, using his experience and sharp eye for detail to guide others, most notably becoming a crucial figure in the camp of Big Ramy, the Egyptian mass monster who would eventually rise to win the Mr. Olympia title. And Dennis's guidance, discipline, and tough love approach were instrumental in helping Ramy refine his package, nail his conditioning, and finally claim the Sando Trophy, proving once again that Dennis James is not just a competitor but a builder of champions. And if you've ever listened to him speak, whether in interviews, on his podcast, or backstage at shows, you can feel the authenticity, the rawness, the no bullshit attitude that makes him stand out in an industry often clouded by hype. Because Dennis tells it like it is, unfiltered, passionate, and always with the heart of a man who lived and breathed the grind of bodybuilding. And beyond the muscles, beyond the titles, what fans respect about him is his ability to connect, to motivate, to bring that human touch that makes his story relatable. Because deep down, Dennis James is every struggling bodybuilder, every kid lifting rusty weights in a basement, every athlete who dreams of standing among giants but feels the odds are stacked against them. His story screams that you don't have to be the most gifted to make an impact, you just have to be the most relentless. And that's why to this day his legacy continues to grow. Because bodybuilding isn't just about who wins the most shows, it's about who leaves a lasting imprint on the culture. Who inspires the next wave, who builds the sport from the inside out. And Dennis James has done all of that and more, not only creating his own legacy but shaping the legacies of others. And if you want to talk about respect in this game, then you must talk about Dennis James, because respect isn't given, it's earned, it's bled for, it's sweated for, and Dennis earned it every step of the way, through the iron, through the pain, through the sacrifice, and through the sheer will to keep pushing when most would quit. And that's why his story matters, because in Dennis James we see a man who refused to be ordinary, who turned his weaknesses into weapons, who transformed his struggles into lessons, and who still to this day gives back to a sport that gave him everything. So let this story remind you that bodybuilding isn't just about perfect genetics or freaky size. It's about character, about resilience, about the fight inside of you to keep going no matter what. And Dennis James is the embodiment of that spirit. So if you've been inspired by his journey, by his energy, by his passion, then don't just watch from the sidelines, join the movement, because bodybuilding isn't a sport you follow, it's a lifestyle you live. And if you want to keep experiencing stories like this, if you want to keep feeling that fire, that motivation, that human connection to the legends of iron, then hit that subscribe button and become part of the Muscle Kraze family. Because the journey doesn't end here, it's only beginning. And together we will keep the flame of bodybuilding burning brighter than ever.